It's the proximity to Seoul that's so striking. Just an hour's drive up a well-traveled highway, you come to a checkpoint.
네, 그 유엔의 와트.
The first sign that you're about to enter a disputed territory. Just ahead, South Korea ends in a no man's land called the DMZ.
We're entering Conference Row now, so we're in Panmunjom.
Commander Rob Watt is our guide, a Canadian and Chief of Staff to the UN Military Armistice Commission, set up after the Korean War.
The military demarcation line, or the MDL, is the line that divides the UN side and the North Korean side.
So the military demarcation line is right there with the snow on it in between those buildings?
Yeah, the small concrete barrier you see, but it runs essentially through the middle of those buildings. We'll be going into T2 in a few minutes.
Okay.
And this is the only place within the demilitarized zone where the two sides are this close.
South Korean officers face north to protect us from an unseen threat, prying eyes in that building on the other side in North Korea.
This is T2, so one of the meeting buildings. In this
so
building.
You go in this door and they go in a door over there?
Exactly.
All this was meant to be temporary, but a promised peace treaty never happened. Can I make a wrong step here? No, I'm okay.
As long as you don't interfere with the soldiers. Now you're on the North Korean side.
I'm in North Korea now.
You're technically in North Korean territory now.
And this doesn't make them nervous?
No.
South Korean officers guard the rear door and the side, as North Koreans have been known to sidle up to the windows.
So when we have distinguished visitors that come down or come up to the DMZ, when that happens, they will normally send several North Korean soldiers down to take photos and identify who the visitor is. And they will stand literally outside this window.
Like peeping Toms?
Exactly like peeping Toms. They'll take photos. So you see just outside the window here, this is the MDL marker. They will not cross that barrier.
Now, Rob, you know, it feels like theater, but this is serious stuff.
It's very serious. When we've met here, it's been for subjects such as modifying the armistice or to discuss serious violations or incidents.
The DMZ has seen its fair share of incidents, including one just last November. A North Korean officer made a run for it across the military demarcation line under fire.
He stalled his Jeep right on the MDL between those two buildings, trying to get it across, exited the Jeep with a number of KPA guards in hot pursuit, firing both pistols and rifles. We actually still have a number of bullet holes in our buildings.
So what was happening here when that was going down?
The actual shooting only lasted about 5 seconds. So it was under observation. Several members of the security battalion crawled out and rescued the soldier. They did not respond with gunfire. Absolutely the right decision. We don't want to escalate a situation here.
Ever since, the North Korean sentry, usually posted outside, has been absent.
So we're now at checkpoint 3, which is one of the high points where we're going to look out over the DMZ.
Listen carefully. That's propaganda music blaring from the north.
Everything from opera music to denunciations of the South Korean president. They'll crank it up at night.
South Koreans have their own battery of speakers elsewhere. This green collection of buildings here?
So that's the village of Gijondong, which we often refer to as the propaganda village. It's a Potemkin village. It was meant to be a shining beacon to encourage South Koreans to defect. The village is actually fake. Most of the buildings are empty.
Except for the few tiny figures we can see walking around, North Korean officers. Patrols of South Koreans and Americans defend the DMZ. No heavy weaponry is allowed, but that doesn't mean it's not all around. So right here, we're about 300 meters from North Korea, just over there in that countryside. The line divides North and South Korea here, right here. You've heard so much about it. It seems pretty peaceful this morning, but over in the Kaesong Heights over there, that mountain range, is North Korean artillery aimed at Seoul. The Korean War lasted 3 years, killed millions. 26,000 Canadians fought here. Over 500 died. When the war ended, prisoners of war traveled back to the north right here on the bridge of no return.
Last year, the North Koreans planted new landmines on their side of the bridge after a spate of defections.
Commander Watt is part of Canada's support to the Armistice Commission, along with 15 other countries. And then there's the Swiss and Swedish camp. tucked away inside the DMZ ever since 1953. Representing the Swiss, Colonel Bert Klingelfuss.
We are the neutral observers of the Military Armistice Commission.
Do you observe the North Koreans as well?
No, no. We do our job only on the southern side.
Now, the world has heard so much about North Korea in the last year with the new American president and with Kim Jong-un. Has it felt more tense up here?
No, not at all. Of course, we follow very closely the media, but there hasn't been any tense situations on the ground.
It is remarkable that the DMZ hasn't exploded. The dividing line still holds, even as its markers rust away.
We're up overlooking Conference Row now.
And as we come to the end of our tour, we ask Commander Watt how the two sides communicate.
We have a hotline with the North Koreans, which we check 4 times a day. They don't answer it. We use a loudspeaker to tell the North Koreans.
You use a loudspeaker to talk to them?
We use a handheld megaphone to say, we have a message for you, please answer your phone. They will send a guard down, usually 2 of them, with a handheld video recorder, and they'll record the message.
You're joking.
No, that is the way we communicate. They haven't picked up the phone since 2013.
And Susan joins me now with a little bit more on this curious, dangerous, interesting place. Give us a sense of the kinds of messages the two sides send to each other, Susan.
Mostly operational, like forest fire.
Yeah.
You know, if there's a forest fire inside the DMZ, they have to send people in. Both sides need to know there's people there so they won't get shot at. There was a nasty incident back in the late 1970s. 2 American soldiers were hacked to death trying to take down a tree. So communication is very important.
What about the North Koreans here, the athletes that we're seeing? What's been the reaction so far?
It's creating quite a stir. For one thing, they travel with security between venues. They travel on separate buses, even if they're on the same team as the South Koreans. And, you know, people are saying, yes, they're taking down the threat level. They're taking the heat off these games, and the politicians love that. But other people are saying, you know, they're suspicious that Kim Jong-un is using this as a pretense for peace and that this is more of a pause, not a real change.
Okay, Susan, thanks for that. We'll watch for Susan's coverage, of course, throughout the Olympic Games.